Todd can't beat him. Todd can't beat him. Sorry, guys. I love Todd. I'm the biggest Todd Hutchin fan that there is. Uncle Side Pressure is the guy. I emulate so many aspects of him, but he's not beating Artem. Too much post top roll, too much hand, and could potentially will contest him in a hook too.
Indeed, and I think you can kind of tell by the picture I chose here for him. I think this would have been a prime Cleve Dean, right? You see pictures of him when he was younger and wasn't quite as bulky as he was there, but I think he's still young enough there to have some mobility on the table and use that massive frame and weight.
That's terrible. It looks like a massively obese guy in that photo. His legs look like
he was. He was at some point, but he could still, do stuff on the table. Weirdly enough.
Let's go, Dave. Now, let's just say that I have gripped Dave Chafee on the table before, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll have to say, I'm just gonna tell you, this is not a word of a lie. I had hand control. Okay, I had hand control. Okay, look. The subset text to that might be that he just had pulled Vitaly Laletin the day before in the most brutal war of his life, and he was beat up. But I know I was actually just doing rehab with him, helping him rehab. But his hand was so blown up and he was so sore that I think my 10-year-old son would have been able to pin him that day. But
I know we all have sort of a.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you might be. Welcome to the Arm Historian Live. And we're joined today by a very special guest indeed, Jason Merlot, an awesome arm wrestler from North America, tearing up the scene there. Also one of the superstars of Knuckles Up, awesome tournament over there. Jason, thank you so much, and thank you for taking the time to do this.
Arm, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you noticing and then wanting to reach out to do this. So awesome. I'm glad to be here.
For sure. I think you're one of the guys to keep an eye out on. I hope one of these days we'll see you at like one of the East versus West stages or something like that. I'd love to see you there, and I think you're getting, in my opinion, of course, pretty close to it.
The more, I always do think about that, and things happen for a reason. So I'm a patient person. Mm-hmm. It just gives me more time to prepare and prep, and the more time I have, the better I'll be for when that opportunity comes. So I have no problem waiting and being patient. There's nothing slowing me down, so I'll continue to do what I do.
Awesome. Glad to hear it, man. Let's jump right into it. I'll quickly go over what we're doing today, which is the Arm Wrestling Fantasy League. I'll go over the rules here with everyone, including you. All athletes are at their all-time prime, so this basically means that we're going back in time in some cases and kind of abducting the athletes to pull in our tournament in their all-time prime shape. It's a best-of-1 double elimination tournament, right arm only, loosely East versus West rules, and tournament fatigue matters, and this is an important one. I think we take a look at the previous matches and how close they were, and we kind of take that into account. And then finally, Levan is banned. All these rules are voted on by the community, that's basically what it boils down to. We'll do 8 matches today, and there'll be 5-minute time limit on every single match. At 5 minutes, there's a hard cut where I stop the votes. You guys are voting on the outcome of the matches, also important. Let's take a look at the brackets really quickly here. Here we go. We see here in the winners of the winners quarterfinals, so the A-side quarterfinals, Devin Larratt versus Todd Hutchings today, Denis Iplenkov versus Travis Bajent, John Brezink versus Michael Todd, Dave Chafee versus Hermes Gasparini, and then we're going over to the losers round 1, or the B-side, let's call it that. Cleve Dean versus Alexei Voivoda, Artem Morozov versus Vitaly Laletin, Rustam Babayev versus Andrei Pushkar, and finally Matt Mask versus Gary Goodrich. Yeah, I think. What do you think? Let's start with the losers round one, the B-sides.
Yeah. Let's start with the loser bracket. Let's start with that.
Okay, so first match, Cleve Dean versus Alexei Voivoda. Let's pull the guys to the table here. Here they are. Yeah, kind of a legacy match in a way, right? I don't think these guys ever faced. I think Cleve Dean was already kind of out of the sport by then.
Yes, for sure. He definitely was out by the time Alexei hit the stage, I think.
Yeah, how do you see this match playing out, Jason?
There's not too much footage out there for Cleve Dean.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to think that Alexei has a little bit too much from my opinion of Cleve Dean, so I kind of think it's a fairly easy vote that Alexei would take it.
Right. Yeah, I think a lot of people will lean that way, just because there is still a little bit of recency bias, I think, with Alexei Voivoda, and like you say, not a lot of footage available from Cleve Dean, really. Especially, like, I think some people would argue Cleve Dean in his prime was like late 70s or something even. Yeah.
Right.
So, especially from that era, there's like precious little footage available. So not a lot to go off on that front. Cleve Dean did remain relevant well into the 90s. Do you think the sport evolved by the time Alexei Voivoda popped onto the scene, like a mere 6 years later, or do you think largely the competition would have been similar?
I have to think with Alexei's existence and basically his big stage coming into the sport, just from seeing footage of Alexei and his power, and I think he probably was a little bit more technical.
Mm-hmm.
I know that John has exposed the hand of Cleve Dean, and because of that, I think, like I said, this is a situation of A beats B, B beats C. And I kind of think in this scenario, my gut feeling is saying that Alexei would completely take Cleve. I don't think he would have enough for him.
Yeah. But probably if Alexei would win, I could see it being in a very quick hit, straight from the go. I don't really see it going any other way there.
Yep, I agree, and I think Alexei's speed and dominance there would probably do the job, and like I said, it does feel like it's like Alexei's time was probably a little step up of in terms of mechanics and technicals of behind the sport. So I do think, like I said, Alexei would have been able to figure something out.
Yeah. And also something that some people might not take into account is by that time was about when the big shift was happening to Eastern pullers becoming pretty dominant. And Alexei was one of the front runners kind of that generation. So yeah, definitely the level was getting higher. Let's see what people in chat were saying about this match here. Armhistorian, are you making note of how exhausted each athlete gets? I know we are counting that, but are we actually making note of it or just memory? So far it's just memory, but it's a good point, Tomer. We should take more note of that and take a look at that. I'll do that after this match, really quickly. The Lucky Ones podcast, how you doing? Good to see you. Welcome. Top Rocking says, with the way arm wrestling promotion is going lately, fantasy leagues is the only option to enjoy arm wrestling. There's plenty of good choices out there, I think. A lot of good leagues out there.
I agree.
Bob Anderson says, Cleve Dean with good technique could win. Interesting. Tomer says, Alexei takes this fairly easily for me, although I'm not well versed in Dean's power, but the match is going inside and Voivoda beat John and Mike easy. Interesting. Cleve would be tired from pulling Devon the previous round, says Eric Roussin. Very good point there, Eric.
Yes.
Eric keeping track, doing my job, as he does in a lot of cases. Thanks so much, Eric. Yeah, that's true. I think Clean having faced Devon in round 1. And let's take a quick look at the brackets here to see who Who his opponent faced here? I'll pull it up for you guys too. Alexei faced Todd Hutchings in round 1. So yeah, might not be as tiring as facing Devon. Could have been a war, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think Alexei would have had more in the gas tank, though.
Yeah, probably. And so far, chat seems to agree with, I think 80% of the votes going to Alexei, and the match slowly drawing to a close here. Eric Roussin, by the way, one of our other future guests who will be on the Fantasy League. Really knowledgeable guy.
Extremely knowledgeable of everything in the sport. Extremely knowledgeable.
Refresh my memory, Jason. Were you ever on a podcast or like an interview together with Eric Roussin and like Neil Pickup and someone else, or am I like, did I dream that up?
I don't know if I've ever spoken to Eric. I don't know.
Okay, maybe that was just.
I don't think so.
Yeah, probably that was just my imagination then. I watched so many interviews in the last years that they all kind of scrambled together after a while.
Yeah, I don't know if Eric was ever on Arm TV. Like, I did a few things on Arm TV. I don't know if Eric ever popped into one of those.
Might have.
That might have been it.
Okay. The match is over now. We've passed 5 minutes. So Cleve Dean lost to Alexei Voivoda. We'll note that down in the brackets. In a pretty easy match, have to say. Cleve Dean. Alexei Voivoda takes the win, and we'll be moving on. Cleve Dean, unfortunately, out of the tournament here. On to our second match, which is Artyom Morozov versus Vitaly Laletin. Are these two guys in their prime right now, Jason?
I think Vitaly's in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
I think Artem is also, but you know, I think because of Artem's very, 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 very quick climb, I think he's definitely more prone to injury now.
That makes sense. Yeah, there has been a lot of ups and downs with Artem lately. That might have something to do with it. Yeah, do you think that's a recurring trend with some of these younger guys coming into the sport really powerfully already?
Yeah, I definitely been noticing that. Some of these guys, especially the younger side of it. They can make these very quick, steep climbs in extreme power and putting on a lot of weight. And I wonder if that's like, that would be something if it was me and my body, knowing what's going on there. I'd definitely be worried of injury. You can't put on too much too fast too quick. Something's gonna go, and I'm more in for the long game, and I want to avoid those injuries if possible.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm kind of the same mindset in the sport, even though I'm of course not nearly at your level or have your experience in the sport, but I'm trying to ease into it more so than blow something the first couple of years.
And with this match, I think it's definitely a good match, but I have to believe that I think Vitaly has an edge because Vitaly's also getting a lot more versatile lately. I definitely think, like, literally right now he's definitely at his prime, and I just think that he'd be able to have an edge over Artem. And being a betting man on this match, I would probably bet on Vitaly taking this match.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially with the context of, I think they did face each other at some point at East versus West even. I think that's 2 years ago or something. Maybe it's been longer. One of the first editions, I think. I do think Vitaly took it over Morozov there, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right. And don't get me wrong. I think Artem. I think Morozov has like if we be patient 2 to 3 years at least with Morozov, I think Morozov is going to be one of those guys that's knocking on Levan's door. I think he has the ability, the possibility. He's clearly dedicated to do that. So I think he's going to be the guy that can possibly do that if there's nobody else that can do it prior. I think he completely has the potential. But right now, yeah, Vitali's on an incredible run, and he's a lot more versatile. He's turning into, and I think he's turning into the possibility right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of see it the same way, especially with like what he did to Michael yesterday. I don't know if you watched. This might be a spoiler.
I did, and I was fishing.
I'm so
I did
sorry,
not get
man.
to see it.
Okay.
But no, give it away. It doesn't matter.
Okay,
Give it away.
Yeah. Vitali pretty convincingly beat Mike. Like, it wasn't a cakewalk in any shape or form, but he did take the match 3-0. But what's significant to me is that he showed that he had a very good flop wrist press, at least to my inexperienced eyes, it looked like it. So yeah, if he can up that versatility with like imagine a Vitali that can really hook well and press well and top roll well, that's force to be reckoned with.
And that's interesting to hear that, Vitali. And now I wonder if he gave up the hand or if Michael took the hand.
Good question. Yeah.
But regardless, though, I think it just goes to show, let's talk Vitali 3 years ago. Vitali 3 years ago was a one-trick pony.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a very good trick at his top roll. Like that was it. But I think a lot of these top level guys that are one-trick ponies are really learning that they do have to have other options in their bag. And like he's a perfect example of one that's doing that. And it's really cool and really interesting to see that it's possible to learn something else and to really go at it at that level. And that's a perfect example. Knowing the key to Michael Todd's game is being able to press through that. And I guess he did it pretty good.
Yeah, he did it indeed. Very impressive to see, and you make a good point there. Yeah, I think that's versatility is becoming more and more important as the sport evolves. It only makes sense, right? People are learning, have easier access to a lot of knowledge about arm wrestling. Let's quickly see what the chat is saying before we round this match off. Carl Foreman says, I went Dean, but your analysis has changed my mind. Homer says, remember, we saw this match already. We are not talking about the puffy face, extra juicy Morozov that we saw on the left hand against Vitali. Because that was his left hand prime. We already have the answer. That's true.
That's right.
Mr. Green says, tendons only grow so fast, in reference to all the young, strong guys coming onto the scene quickly. Very true. I'll call this match here. Vitali did take it in the end over Morozov quite convincingly, so I'm imagining a relatively quick pin, top roll outside. But I'm thinking for this match. So well done, Vitali. I'll end the poll there. Let's take a look at the brackets, what our next match is gonna be.
This is really cool to think about this and to conceptualize what can go on. And this is really cool. I like the concept, Arm. I like it.
I appreciate it, man. I'm trying to get the hang of like all the technical stuff behind the scenes because it's costing me like a lot of time doing it and talking in the meanwhile and all this stuff. But yeah, I like it. It's fun to do. Rustam Babayev versus Andrei Pushkar is our next match. Third round of the losers, round one here. Take a look. Rustam Babayev in his prime versus Andrei Pushkar. When was Rustam Babayev's prime? Do you think like 2007 or something, when he like faced John and did well against John and stuff?
I think somewhere there, yes. That would be my best guess for Babayev's prime. I agree with that.
Yeah, I think so too. And then Pushkar probably, unfortunately, by the time he met his untimely demise, I think he was at his prime probably.
Yep. I agree. I think he was completely at his prime right till the end, and it's such an unfortunate thing because I think his ceiling was a lot higher.
Yeah, you would imagine so, right? Seeing the matches he had with some of the top guys around was just amazing. Very unfortunate.
Yep.
So Andre Pushkar, Rustam Babayev, who do you have here? Jason, I think I have an inkling.
I think
I'd be wrong.
I think Pushkar has I think Pushkar would create a lot of trouble for Babayev's hand. Look, and you know, it's hard for anybody to be able to top roll Babayev. It's almost like guaranteed. 99% of the time that Babayev will get his inside power, but I just have to believe that Pushkar is too big of a dude, too tall of a dude, and that lever would probably cause a lot of issues for Rustam. And I think Pushkar would he puts himself off as such a static, strong human being. Like his ready goes. He just looks like an absolute concrete statue. And I think Rustam would need a little more to be able to crank inside. And I think Andre would just deny that completely from Babayev.
Yeah, indeed. I think I agree there. Just way too, like you said, way too explosive in a very static way where Rustam, wouldn't be able to find a foothold, I think, just plow right through. Yep. Atlantis says, you're killing it. Gertillen says, remember to hit the like button. Yeah, thanks for reminding people. But yeah, primarily remember indeed to hit the like button, but also remember to hit the vote button in the chat. We've got 11 votes for this match and 20 people in, so a little more votes. It only takes a second or something, so you get a little more votes and it'll be more representative of what the community really thinks here. Mr. Green says, Pushkar reminds me of a faster Dave Chafee. Yeah, I kind of...
that's interesting.
Can see that. Yeah, I can see that. Rustam at 300 pounds, says Bob Anderson. You imagine Rustam's frame at 300. I don't know. Some of these people, I think it's like a question that you hear a lot when some of the lighter guys are reaching the top of the ranking, their weight class, and I'm sure you've gotten asked this question sometime. Did you ever consider like pulling up in weight? That's a question I hear a lot. Or do you consider going up to the heavyweights, super heavyweights? How far do you think you can take your frame?
It's whatever my body wants to do. I'm not going to modify myself genetically to get there. I'm letting my body do what it needs to do. Like, first and foremost for me, like, just my overall health and physical health is of top priority. Like I just want everything to be as is. So I'm not gonna push my body to that extent. My frame as of right now, with where I am right now, like it has stepped up a little bit. Like for years I couldn't break 200 pounds for years. And then within the last like 3 years, finally my body has comfortably sit up to around 205. That's where I comfortably sit now. And I was always
95, I think, or something like that.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
yep.
Sorry.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's interesting. It's just I've tried to get as heavy as I can just by eating and paying attention to my meals and adding multiple meals in between and all that stuff. And my body just can't hold it. It simply cannot hold it. Like the heaviest I've ever been, I think that I weighed at was 207, and I think that was for Mario Tambakis.
Right.
And that was me stuffing myself as much as possible. So my body can't hold it yet. And like I said, I'm glad that my body can't hold it because I feel good. Like I'm active. I can go outside, throw a football. I can go run the bases on a baseball diamond. Like, you know what I mean? I like that. Like I said, there's a lot more for me in life than just these specifics for hitting everything in arm wrestling. I want to be good at arm wrestling while being able to maintain everything else in my life. So that's how I am.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Especially considering, I don't know, do you think it's possible to, with that mindset, still get to the absolute top of the sport? Does it just take longer?
That's my goal, Arm. That's exactly my goal.
Okay.
Look, I'm just starting to touch that level in that group of elites where starting to get that possibility there. Yeah. That's my goal. That is 100% my goal, and it's more of a me thing. I see it as me being an underdog. I'm this little fish in a big pond of big fish, and I'd rather make the decision to essentially be at a disadvantage and still come out victorious. That's what drives me. That's what drives me and my ego. So I want to make it happen. So I'm going to try to.
Well,
that's my goal, Arm.
It's certainly a healthy outlook as far as like actual physical health goes. I think mentally too, by the way. I think that is the best way to approach it, especially considering, I could kind of see some athletes in a sport that is way bigger than arm wrestling kind of say, okay, I'm going to dedicate like everything to it for a certain amount of time in order to get to the top or see if I can get there. But for me in arm wrestling, I don't really see a reason to ever abuse your body in that way to kind of get there. Does that make sense?
Everybody has their own goals in life.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with wanting to be able to push your body to an ultimate physical limit, and that many of the guys do, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, I don't fault any of them or look down or any of that. Like, that's their choice, and this is just my choice of how I want to try and reach that level. So I'm going to try to reach it the way that I want to reach it. And like I said, that's my goal. That's what aligns for me. So right now, that's my mindset. Never know if it'll change, but I don't think it will, because there's just, like I said, for me, a lot of other things in life trump what the possibilities are with that. So I'd rather just do it as clean, as natural as I could possibly be, because it just works for me.
Yep. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I think people in chat also kind of are responding to it. Here said, I respect Jason for trying to get there in the way that he sees is right for him. Yes, indeed, that's all you can do at the end of the day. So this match has ended. Andrei Pushkar took the victory very decisively over Rustam Babayev, which unfortunately means Rustam Babayev will be leaving the all-time prime fantasy league here. Goodbye, Rustam Babayev. Andrei Pushkar will be moving on. And I believe he will be facing... Oh no, we don't know that yet. That's determined later. But right now, we'll get to Matt Mask versus Gary Goodrich in his prime.
Man.
That's a very... Yeah, that match will never happen. I think that's obvious. But that's an interesting one to think about, especially with the level differences in the sport right now. Because I think Gary Goodrich is like absolute peak in the sport as far as accomplishments might be higher than Matt Mask's, but Matt Mask does kind of live and thrive in another level, so of the sport in general. What do you think, Jason?
This one I think is a hard one. I mean, look, John has spoken so highly of Gary.
Yep.
John has spoken so highly of Gary. And, John also, from what I've heard in interviews and stuff like that, John also said that Gary could have kept going higher and higher if he really kept going after the sport. So, he was a phenom, an absolute phenom for his time.
Yep.
And this is one of the ones that is definitely a harder one for me to gauge. I think Now let's go on the flip side. Let's go to Matt. When was or is Matt at his prime now? I mean,
Good question.
I don't know. That is a hard one to gauge.
Yeah. Is it
That is a
WAL
hard
mask or is it like current day mask?
Oh,
I have
man.
no clue either, actually. Yeah, Matt Mask, another one who pulled yesterday versus Nugo Chikadze. Massive height difference between those two pullers. And yeah, a lot of people, Matt Mask went in as a favorite, but couldn't really deliver on that yesterday, unfortunately. So yeah, I don't know. Matt Mask seems to be at a high level right now, but Gary Goodrich was just so dominant in the decade he was in the sport. He was like consistently at the top level there. And yeah, around 97 or 96, I think, something like that, he stepped away from the sport at the top, with John even dropping a weight class because Gary was dominating the heavyweights at Yukon Jack, and John even deciding to I'll stay away from him. So yeah, hard to say here.
So, more thinking about it, and hearing what happened with the Nugo match. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Look, I have the same type of problem. If I pull somebody that's so much shorter than me, that is an absolute beast in a hook, it is very hard to get the angle correct in order to deny them from going inside. There's just something about a shorter lever with a guy that knows how to hook and that is super strong in there versus a guy that has a long lever that is a top roller.
Yeah.
You need to get that angle absolutely precise in order to deny that hook, and it is very hard. It is very, very hard. The top roller is the one that always has to come down to the guy that is the hooker. Meanwhile, because the hooker has a shorter arm, he has the ability to post straight up. So that angle is extremely difficult to deal with. So now trying to bring that into here and Gary Goodrich, and I think Gary was a top roller, but also had a strong inside, and I think he was also quick and explosive.
As is Matt Mask, to be fair.
Correct. Yes, he absolutely is, and this is probably one of the hard ones to decide. I don't know. Maybe. Oh man.
Yeah, this is difficult. Really difficult.
I think. Oh man, this is hard. And the reason why this is so hard. So like, I'm trying to compare to other strong, high level inside hook pullers. Like, let's look at Marcio, for example. I think Marcio is probably somewhere similar to Gary Goodrich's height of 6 foot, 6'1". I don't know, somewhere in that range. Marcio is super versatile. And we saw Matt Mask completely deny Marcio at King of the Table in Atlantic City. And
that's true.
That's something. I'm just trying to look at a build and a guy that can pull like that. So that's also something that really, really is in Matt's favor. Matt, and like I said, we're talking about Matt Mask in his prime, but he's also he really is a wild horse. He comes in at different levels all the time.
I think a good day, like the best day, Matt Mask is a very dangerous puller for a lot of people. I'll quickly go over some chat messages here from people. Is Matt Mask prime now or in WAL? If that's indeed the question, power quotes. Tomer says, I think Matt's prime was WAL. He was younger, faster, and heavier. In some cases, heavier. Yeah. Oh, he was definitely heavier. He's like is he 105 or 115 now? 105, I think, right?
Yes.
Against Nugo? He came in at 105, I think.
He came in at 105, huh?
I think
so that's a little lighter.
That's
a little
crazy.
lighter. I think he comfortably sits around that 245-pound range, which would be close to 115. And I think that's where he fits best, I believe. And yeah, Matt Mask, he's in a. I've seen Matt Mask in person a few times, and he is very deceiving. You know, on the TV and videos, you could tell he's a big guy, but in person, he's just an absolutely massive human being. Like, he's large, a huge wingspan. His back is absolutely huge. Like,
That's crazy.
He's a very big human being, extremely big.
I had the same thing with I pretty recently met Evgeny Prudnik at a tournament here nearby, and he's so thick, it's crazy to actually see him up in person, like height-wise about what I expected, but just the thickness of his joints, and pretty crazy to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, the match ended here. Matt Mask unfortunately lost the match. Very close results. Yeah. So Gary Goodrich will be moving on, and Matt Mask unfortunately out of the tournament. Glad to see him go. Matt Mask, just in general, one of my favorite pullers. Just the energy that he brings, and the way he pulls, and is always present. Always a big presence on the stage. Gary Goodrich moving on here. We'll see who he'll be facing after we go through the winners quarterfinals, with the first match being Devin Larratt versus Todd Hutchings. We've seen this match in WAL. I think
we have.
Yeah, this might be a very quick one if people vote one way or the other, and it's like a very decisive victory, then I might call it sooner. I'll just call it a flash pin.
Yeah.
But we'll take a look what chat thinks.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the chat thinks, but you know, we see a lot now with. I mean, they're both at their prime now.
Yeah.
They're both at their prime.
Yeah. They have faced.
They're both at their prime.
And it has been close in the past. Some of their matches. Thinking back to some WAL. Near pins, I think, of Todd Hutchings, or he pinned Devin maybe even once or twice. I don't know.
Oh, he did. Look, that first round in WAL, Todd Hutchings definitely pinned Devin. There's no question about it. There's absolutely no question about it. But you know, with knowing where Devin's at now, and you know, his absolute prime, and like, you know, and Devin, I think, has had a few primes. Like when he pulled Michael Todd in Dubai, I think was probably close to his prime. You know, we don't, you know, when he came in for that Michael Todd match, he looked like a completely different human being, and still even different than when he pulled Levan, even though he was, I think, a little bit heavier with Levan. And then, you know, most recently with how he handled Gennady, was absolutely, completely, unbelievably impressive. Just, I mean, unbelievable. And I think, you know, regardless of whether either of those two primes we're talking, I still think he would beat Todd Hutchings, and you know, I just think it's a different frame and a different size puller that I don't think Todd can be able to deal with.
Yeah, I think there was a time in Todd's career where he could hang with the super heavyweights. But I think that time has passed. Not because Todd has become worse, but once again, because the level has just gone that much higher.
Agreed, and that's exactly it. The level of the sport got higher. It stepped up a rung, and it's always constantly stepping up a rung. It's amazing how that keeps happening, and you think we get close to the top, but these athletes prove us wrong, and it's amazing how it changes.
Yeah, and I can only imagine from like a perspective of like being in there and actually trying to steadily climb the ranks. Must have a new dimension to it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Let's take a look what chat is saying. Two smart guys, but I think the power gap is too wide right now. Yeah, that makes sense. Is there even a competition? Devin just runs through him like a freight train. I do think that would probably happen. Power Codes personnel says wall tables and rules are way different from the WAF or East versus West. Where are they competing? It is an East versus West rule set and East versus West tables. Now, I had this discussion with Matt Connolly on last live stream. Jason, do you know East versus West pads how do they compare to WAL pads now? Because I know quite recently, I think they added a little bit to the pads. I don't know if you're up on that
Great
at all.
question. But didn't they add evenly?
Yeah, I think so.
So that makes that's the difference right there. That's the difference. WAL added just off the back. They didn't add off the front.
Interesting. Okay.
So that makes the difference right there. So the fact that it's added evenly, whatever the change was with the pads, I don't think because of that doesn't make much of a difference then.
Huh. That means WAL was way more suited for outside pulling, I'm guessing.
Correct, yes. And the King's move. And not only that, too, not just the distance off the back, but also those type of pads. Like, those pads were like a trampoline.
Yeah.
It was so odd how those were built. And you could really sink that elbow way in. And you can use your elbow as a wedge off the back of that elbow pad. And, like, you know, people could plant their elbows back there in that King's move. And you can't do anything about it. You really can't do anything about it.
It's crazy that Jerry Caderet did as well as he did in that league with his press.
Yes, and that just goes to show you like Jerry Caderet's ability, because yes, he faced extreme adversity as a result of that, and his success in there is pretty clear.
Yeah. You pulled on in the WAL tournaments, right? I think you won one even, or am I mistaken? Or placed pretty high in one?
I'll tell you something, Arm. I've been noticing this lately. Like when people come up to me and tell me about like matches that I've had and stuff like that, sometimes I need to go back and I'm like, I don't even remember that. And they're like, oh yeah. And I'm at the point now where I don't even remember some of the things that people remember about me. It's true. It's amazing. But no, I've competed at WAL, and I did like a pre-match against Jerome Loud before one of the big WALs, that when Marcio pulled Krazy at WAL in Virginia. I remember I did that. But yeah, no, I did WAL out in Chicago in one of the big regionals where there was like, I don't even know, like 500, 600 athletes there pulling.
Crazy.
Yeah, and that one in Chicago was when Marcio pulled Devin and everybody was at the table. That was like the both the leading up to the finals and the finals. That match, it was like a 2-minute hook war each time with them. And like, I remember the whole there was like 8 tables going on. All the other 7 tables stopped to watch Devin and Marcio pull. It was incredible.
Crazy.
So yeah, I've pulled at a ton of WAL events in my tenure.
Would have loved to have been there. Yeah, would have been awesome.
It was incredible.
In the meanwhile, this match has finished and Devin Larratt took the victory. I thought Hutchings got a little bit, a couple hits in maybe, or like 1 hit, 1 search or something. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
Let's see what it does to the brackets here. I think our next match is an exciting one too. Here we go.
I'll tell you though, these guys, Devin and Todd, they're the guys that will keep everybody else that are younger than them motivated to keep going, because these guys just prove that age is only a number.
Yeah, that's so true, especially when it comes to arm wrestling. That has been proven so true time and time again. There's an interesting topic there, I think, in like how come maybe younger pullers from the East have been more successful compared to younger pullers from the West, and then older pullers from the West being more successful than some older guys from the East. I think there's some kind of trend there we can take a look at, but yeah, that might be too deep of a topic for this fantasy league.
Yeah.
In the meanwhile, Denis Iplenko versus Travis Bagent is our next match in their primes. I do believe they've never faced before, have they? On the right? Or on the left?
I don't know. I think they have. I'm gonna quick Google search this to see. I don't know.
I can't really think of a match straight away. Now that doesn't mean that it didn't happen, because there's plenty of matches that I don't know about. But yeah, I can't really think of one offhand. Maybe someone in chat will correct us.
No, maybe. I think you might be right, Arm.
Yeah, which is crazy to think of, right?
How has that not happened?
I
It's
know.
crazy.
I know. And people talk about Devon avoiding some Eastern pullers. These guys have never pulled. Now, I don't know who did the avoiding in this case, or maybe just didn't work out for some reason or another.
Yeah, I don't know. But, so we're talking right arm.
Yeah, prime.
And I mean, look, when Travis was in his prime, even with the right, like Travis, and this is best of one too. So like, he has the ability to shock Dennis, but still that Dennis was an absolute monster. And
He was.
Dennis could still pull without that hand a little bit. I don't even know if Travis's post would be able to get through. I don't think, since we're talking East versus West here, he wouldn't be able to set up really the way that he truly would want to set up here. So I don't know if Travis would get enough bite for him to successfully top roll Saplankov and have enough momentum to get him there.
Yeah.
I think Saplankov would stop it, and I think Saplankov would win.
Yeah, definitely if Saplankov managed to stop the first hit or two maybe from Travis, because a prime Travis I think has the ability to hit multiple times. You know, we've seen him in a match versus Richard Lupkes where he hung in there for a long time in kind of an open top roll situation a little bit. So yeah, I do think Travis has the ability, a prime Travis, but whether or not, I think with Saplankov, if he gets stopped, the match is, like you alluded to, pretty much over.
Yeah. Yep. And I think more times than not, even though that was maybe a one-off, I think more times than not, when Travis felt resistance in the past, he would just give it up.
Yeah.
He was never a grinder or a fighter in that matter. It was all really at the beginning.
That's true.
It was all about that completely explosive hit. Now, this is interesting though, because Travis, it's a shame that Travis just didn't continue on as much. He accomplished so much super early on in his career, and he's that type of personality where he kind of said, I did that, and he had other more important things in his life that came up. But he showed a little bit of versatility in WAL when he beat Jerry Cataret and pressed Jerry.
Yep,
and I think he pressed Jerry both right and left-handed. And I wish we saw more of Travis. I think he could have kept going. I think he could have brought his level higher.
That's
what I'm
so
saying.
true. Yeah, I do agree there. I think a dedicated Travis is a dangerous man, but it's also a very rare occurrence in general. So,
and I think one of the big things. So I don't know if you remember, Arm, when Pound for Pound was around with Ryan Bowen. Ryan came to the U.S. for a few tournaments and stuff like that, and Travis pulled Saban Badalescu, and that Travis that showed up so that was the day that Travis tore his pec.
Yeah. I do remember that.
But I remember, so I saw Travis. So I guess this is, I don't even know. I guess 2020, back when COVID was around, somewhere around there. Yeah. But that Travis that showed up, when I saw Travis that day, I was like, oh my God, this is a different human being. Crazy. If he hadn't hurt his pec that day, I think we would have saw Travis continue on a super motivated route, because that Travis that day was a completely different human being. Like, I saw this man and he looked like an absolute wall of a human being.
Crazy.
That was the possibility, I think, Travis, of really coming back. If he did not hurt his pec that day, he was on an absolute mission when I saw him.
Unfortunate. I would have loved to have seen that. Travis keeping on winning from that point on and just keep on going would have been great.
Yep.
In the meanwhile, he didn't win this match with a very clear result, 93% in favor of Siplenkov here. Kind of not that surprising, but yeah, there you go. Siplenkov wins convincingly. Travis got maybe one hit in, and Siplenkov finished the match quickly here. So there we go, Siplenkov moving on. Travis going to the B side. Almost our last match. Have 2 more to go. Right now it's John Berzink versus Michael Todd, both in their prime.
Oh my goodness.
I think this could be a really good match. Honestly, I think
Wow.
Prime Berzink is so good, but like a prime Michael gives any athlete issues. I think I'm convinced. Like maybe apart from Levan to a degree, I think a prime Michael gives any athlete issues.
And now we're trying to think prime John. So it's obviously not anytime recent.
Yeah. I think like prime John, you could point to, I think Slotty Tour John of 2007, where he came in really heavy and beat the likes of Denis Siplenkov and stuff. Or you could point maybe to like a 2000, around 2000 time John Berzink, where he was kind of without any real competition and was kind of getting sick of the sport. Yeah, hard to say.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely periods of time where John really, really, really stood out. So yeah, it's somewhere in there. And now let's talk Michael Todd. I mean, where's Michael at? Where's his prime? So are we talking prior to his recent blown bicep?
It would have to be, right? That's really more difficult for me to pinpoint than John Berzink's prime, to be fair. I like Michael's prime. Is it recently? Hard to say. He won versus Gennady recently, right? I believe.
Yeah, maybe somewhere around that time. And even so, I think historically John has had the tools and the patience for that. I believe John has a winning record over Michael Todd from, I don't know, just from videos out there, I think. Going off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I'm thinking of a couple of videos. There's like the very famous one with not stand up buddy, that's the Travis one, but a very similar one where John says something like that
at UAL.
Yeah,
at
indeed,
UAL.
Indeed. Like, where you going, buddy? I think he says, like the famous quote.
Yep.
There's a couple of other ones where they pulled, I'm pretty sure, and John kind of got the upper hand. I know early on, when Michael wasn't long in the sport, they met multiple times, I believe. One of them being at like a John Berzink challenge, I think, where John faced like 100 people in a row or something, and Michael was amongst them.
Yeah, see, like it's incredible, right? Like those types of things. And John did another one somewhere overseas where also he pulled like 100 people, and then Lars Rabakin came into the mix.
Yep.
Like it's absolutely incredible that there are athletes that can do that. Like that's unbelievable. Just think about that.
It is, yeah. It is unbelievable looking at John's career, the crazy accomplishments he had, and so consistently too. Like the highest paid tournaments every year, nearly.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So I said, I'm still trying to think about a prime. When is Michael Todd's best?
Some people will point to WAL, right? Some people.
Right, when he beat Devin?
Yeah. Yep,
when he beat Devin, that was amazing.
He had the crazy match with Jerry Caderet, the crazy matches with Jerry Caderet. He had multiple ones, I think, super matches. I don't know, man.
It's very hard to tell because I also, like, even from WAL, I think Michael Todd has gotten stronger physically. And he's definitely evolved.
Yeah.
you know, Michael Todd gets a lot of hate. I think he gets a lot of less hate though now in today's world because, you know, he definitely pulls different and he's evolving.
That's true. Which is crazy to say after like a 35-year career or something, right?
Well, look, the reason why he probably keeps evolving is because of how many injuries he's had.
Yeah.
Like Michael Todd has told his story before. Like he's had like 90 fractures to his arm. Like he's had an unbelievable amount of. Like Michael Todd is the absolute epitome of heart when it comes to heart, and absolute like just like Rocky Balboa heart. Like Michael Todd goes out on his shield. I think he pulls a lot smarter now where he puts his arm in a lot less prone positions, probably because he can't put him in those positions anymore. But when he first started in the sport, like, oh my God, the break arm position that he would put his arm in like all the time was absolutely unbelievable. He just did not care. Yeah. He would blow right through it. And like, that's a hard thing to, you can't teach somebody that. So this is such a hard one to make. Like this is, and look at the votes. Like we're at 50-50 right now. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's true. John Berding started with a heavy lead, but yeah, and it changed over time. John in his prime has strength, technique, and a full arsenal of weapons to launch at him, says Power Quotes. Tomer says Mike's arm is a lot weaker than it was before the bicep tear. I can't respect Mike's technique. Also the bone lock. Okay, that's another discussion altogether. Yeah, John Brzink is edging it out right now. I think we've got a couple of seconds left. So get your vote in if you haven't voted already. And yeah, we did hit 5 minutes with that. And John Brzink took it in the end in a extremely close match. Yeah, crazy. Well done. It even switched to 50-50 after the 5 minutes had passed. So
wow.
Yeah, really close match.
That's incredible.
Yeah, John Brzink did end up eking out the victory there in the end. So well done, John Brzink, and I do think that match would actually be pretty close if they would have ever faced in their prime. Next,
I think it would be a complete stand-up audience that would be just going ballistic.
For sure.
Because you know it would be a long match. That's it.
Yep, so true. John wouldn't give up either. In prime John. So yeah, moving on to our next match over in the brackets here. Let's take a quick look. Dave Chafee versus Hermes Gasparini as the final match of the night. Hermes is prime right now, you think?
Well, it's either that or when he pulled Levan.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah. Might be so recently, we'll say within the last year. Probably the Hermes that showed up for Levan is a good guess there. What about Chafee?
Dave Chafee. Yeah. Chafee, I would say when he pulled and beat Saplankov. He beat Saplankov on fouls, but I believe in that match,
or 13 or 12.
Yeah, 13 or 12, somewhere around there. And I think that was I know a little bit about Dave. I've spoken to Dave before. I don't know the extent of when his neck injury had happened. I don't know what it was from and what extent exactly it is. I just know that he's had a neck injury that has, I think, handicapped him over the past 5-10 years. And I think it's just been something that's been there. And it's such a shame because he's a completely raw power human being. But looking at a guy like Hermes, look, we saw Hermes. Did Hermes beat Michael Todd when Hermes was just starting to come up, I think, in Italy?
Yeah.
I think he did.
No, I think Michael won that match on fouls. He didn't get a single pin on Hermes. Yeah.
That's right.
Crazy match.
And look, Hermes is an absolute phenom. And, I was worried about Hermes when he put on his weight. Like we were talking earlier, guys that put on weight at a young age over a quick period of time. Like at the beginning of East versus West, when that started, that's when Hermes decided to.
Yeah.
He put on like 50 pounds and turned into a completely different human being.
Yeah.
But he's, I think, avoided catastrophic injury. And at first, I was like, "Oh no, this is not going to be good for Hermes," because I feel like that 225, 235 pounds, like 110, 115 kilo Hermes was like his prime shape. But he's obviously a different human being now, and everything's holding up. So I honestly believe that Hermes would go through Dave, because I think the tools that he has and has shown at his prime, like I said, against Levan, of being able to hold at the pad and then all the way down at the pad, getting his shoulder in. Like if Dave were to somehow take Hermes' hand, which I don't believe would happen, but if that were to happen, like Hermes has that to fall on it, and that's shown to be like absolute dynamite. Like I don't think Hermes loses this match against Dave in his prime.
I think you're right. I also, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they faced that East versus West not too long ago. On the right,
Maybe they have.
I think like as kind of an interim match or something, kind of rings a bell. Like, I think so. I think they faced, and I think Hermes.
Oh, they did. Yes.
Yeah, I think Hermes
East versus
won.
West 5.
Yeah, but not
East versus West 5.
Okay, interesting. East versus West 5. Okay. Yeah, and I think Hermes won that match, but like not super easy. I think Dave gave him a little bit of issues.
Yes, he did.
And I don't think
Because
that's
Dave went into a press.
right. Okay, interesting. That's when, like, when was the Dave versus Vitali match where Dave was also pressing like crazy? That was
that was probably one of the in my book, like that is one of the top 5 best matches of all time. That Dave versus Vitali. Yes. Yep. And that was a good. You know what? Now I'm thinking about it. Maybe that was a close to prime Dave.
Could be, yeah, could be. I think Dave came in feeling pretty good that day, and a Dave in good shape that, like you said, isn't too bothered by his injury. Could be a very dangerous Dave. But yeah,
he is, and you know, it was cool seeing Dave though. It was cool seeing Dave sort of like that that unconventional style of side top pressure. Like everybody described it when he was dominant and at the top, like that nobody could figure out the pieces to the puzzle against Dave. And I think that's just a testament of how the sport has evolved. Like look at how many people that can pull with Dave and go through Dave. Like it's amazing that the sport can make these leaps and bounds of steps higher. It's amazing.
Yeah, that is true. And in that way, Dave has kind of become a de facto like gatekeeper of the super heavies in a way. To kind of bust into the top 10, you gotta beat Dave in a way. That's kind of what it has become now, which is I don't want to call it unfortunate. It's just like you said, a result of the sport growing in level and the pool getting bigger and bigger. Chat says Hermes won't win center, but he will win. It will be like their first match, just a little bit harder. Yeah, I can kind of see that. Brian says Hermes beat Dave, which got him his Levan match. Okay, that makes sense. You have a table 5 indeed. Get your votes in if you haven't voted already, guys, but I think we're nearing the end of this match. Indeed, we've gotten to the end of this match with Hermes winning very comfortably over Dave. Let's take one last look at what that does with our brackets. Here we go. Hermes winning over Dave, which means we'll quickly go over what that means for next Sunday, when Devin Lerat will be facing Denis Iplenkov, Tom Brezink will be facing Hermes Gasparini, and then that'll be good ones. And then Dave Chafee will be facing Alexei Voivoda, Michael Todd versus Vitaly Laletin, Travis Bagent versus Andrei Pushkar, and Todd Hutchings versus Gary Goodrich. So,
Wow.
yeah, a lot of good matches to come. But yeah, that'll be the end of this fantasy league. Jason, did you enjoy it somewhat?
It was really cool just thinking about it and going through everything. I love that. That was awesome.
Yeah, I'm very happy we got you on, Jason, and I think you provided some awesome insights. People in chat seem to agree there. So thank you so much, Jason. Is there anything you want to plug, or is there an upcoming match for you? What do you have going on?
I'll tell you this much. No, I don't have anything currently on the horizon, and it's kind of nice. I pulled with Knuckles up for the past 5 events, and after knowing that another match was coming on, another match was coming on, like it's kind of nice to not have anything on the immediate horizon. It's also a busy time of the year for me in the spring. A lot of fishing is happening and all that stuff. So yeah, a lot of other life stuff. So I'm kind of okay with the fact that I don't have anything on the immediate horizon. So it's kind of good.
Yeah.
Take a little break, recharge a bit, and let like I said, I'm a patient person, Arm. The longer it takes, the better I'm getting. So
yeah, and the
it's
sweeter
just
the reward,
it's
maybe.
fuel for me. Yeah, it's just fuel. It's a good thing for me. So nothing on the horizon, but everybody will definitely be seeing me. It's only a matter of time.
Awesome. You can follow Jason on any of his social media accounts if you so choose. His channel is right in the title of this video to his YouTube channel. So go over there if you want. Jason, thanks so much, man. And anyone watching, thank you so much for voting today and for joining us. Join us again next Sunday. We'll do this all over again with another very special guest and new matches. Until then, bye-bye, guys.